snack. Me and you gonna have a little chat about books. Hi guys, so I am here today to do a review for the final book in Wheel of Time, which is A Memory of Light. This is written by Brandon Sanderson and Robert Jordan, and it's the 14th book in Wheel of Time, and the final one, which means I have now finished the entire series of Wheel of Time, which makes me so ridiculously, incredibly happy, and I cannot tell you guys how long this has taken me. It's taken me about 3 years to get through this series, but that doesn't mean in any way that I haven't enjoyed the series. It just means they're very long books, because they are. I am going to do a spoilery discussion video of the entire 14 books, so if you guys have read all of the books in the series and you would like to hear some of the thoughts that I have generally and you want to come over and discuss that, then I will put a link to that down below as well, because I'm going to be uploading this and that video at the same time. But this is going to be a non-spoiler review, so don't worry if you've not read the books, I'm not going to spoil how it ends. I definitely would have to say that number 14 in the series is 100% my favourite book in the series so far, because it was so perfectly done. The ending of Wheel of Time is something I have been a little bit worried about for a while. When I actually started reading the series, it was because I knew that Brandon Sanderson was the one who was going to finish up the series, so I was quite excited about getting to the Brandon Sanderson books, but I didn't know if Brandon Sanderson would be able to emulate Robert Jordan's style enough that it would flow and work, and I didn't know if Brandon Sanderson was going to do justice to the ending of this majorly epic series. But luckily all of my worries were for naught, because he did exactly that, and he was fantastic as a writer for the final few books, and this one was no exception. It was filled with so many fantastic moments, so many sacrifices by characters, so many really heartwarming moments as well, and just so many answers to questions that we've had for so long as well. So there was a lot going on. Most of this book does revolve around the last battle. The last battle is essentially this epic battle between good and evil that we have constantly been building up to, and obviously this book is basically last battle. Everything in this has fighting and it has fight scenes, but it's done well. I am definitely a bit of a stickler when it comes to fight scenes. I do not like them if I can't imagine it, and I find it quite difficult to imagine big armies and things like that and the movements of them. But I think Sanderson does it quite well in that he focuses a lot on two characters fighting each other, and you get to see that a little bit more. You still do see the larger scale fighting, and you definitely get a lot of that, but I think the way that Sanderson writes it, it's quite approachable and it's quite readable. Even though it is a big epic battle, it is quite readable. Whilst I did give the last two Sanderson books that I read, number 12 and 13 in the series, a 5 out of 5 stars, I also gave this a 5 out of 5 stars, but I think this one was even more of a 5 out of 5, if that makes sense. Like, those two were a good 5 out of 5, this was an excellent 5 out of 5, because it was just so well balanced. Even though it is a lot of fighting, we get a lot of conversation between characters as well, and we get to see that there is a lot going on. There are various different fronts that the different armies, are fighting on against the Dark One and his minions, and so we get to see various different battlefronts, various different commanders, various different leaders who are all in charge of different types of people with different abilities, and we see each and every one of them at different points in the story and how they react to certain things that the Dark One is doing, and it all worked really well. Even though we are focusing on so many different areas and so many different people, it still ties together really easily, and it didn't ever feel like it was forced or didn't ever feel like it was really rushed. I felt like it was very, very balanced, and I think that's definitely a credit to Sanderson, because I don't know if Jordan would have done quite as Sanderson did, but I think it worked so well. There was honestly never ever a dull moment throughout this book. I didn't ever once feel bored. I didn't ever once look at the pages and go, oh, how long have I got left? No. I was hooked. I read this through really quick and I really enjoyed it. It was a fast-paced monster of a book. Over 1,000 pages, but easy to get through, which is quite a credit to Sanderson. I must say that chapter 37, which is entitled very aptly The Last Battle, monstrously long chapter. It is about 215-ish pages. One chapter. Usually the chapters in Wheel of Time are like 30-ish pages maybe even less than that, and this one is over 200, so it's by far the longest chapter in the book. That is the real last battle, essentially. The whole book focuses on various battlefronts, but that last battle is really the major epic moment between our good character and the bad character that we've been focusing on. So that was pretty crazy. That was pretty intense, yeah, I mean, I was hooked throughout it, but it is epic in all senses of the word, and I really enjoyed that chapter. It was definitely crazy, it was definitely aptly named, and it made sense, and it was just mind-blowing. So that was a good chapter. And the fact that it is such a long one, and it's very, very readable, again, such a credit to Sanderson. Of course, where there is a battle, there must ultimately be sacrifice and sadness, and we do have some tragedy and some moments where it was very sad and heart-wrenching, because we've been following these characters for such a long time, and we know them and we enjoy them, and we want to see them survive and prosper, but of course that can't always be what happens, and there are moments of tragedy and sadness within this book that did make me a little bit emotional. Many of the main characters are put into some really tricky situations, some very scary and violent situations, and also some where they're magically threatened. I found myself totally absorbed in who was who and what was going on with which person, and whose plan was working and whose plan wasn't working. All of these interweavings and interconnections between the various armies and fronts was really, really well done. The monsters and the bad guys within this story definitely did not shy away from making a big appearance and a big splash in the story. We've seen bad guys throughout the Wheel of Time. We've seen Trollocs, we've seen grey men, we've seen horrible people and nasty Forsaken. We've seen all sorts of bad guys. They're all nasty. But in this book, we see a ridiculous amount of bad guys, like way more than we've seen in any of the other books, and I think some of them are quite scary. I mean, some of them really are quite terrifying. When you read the full descriptions of how they're described in the book, they do sound pretty monstrous, pretty terrifying, so glad that our characters could face off against them on various fronts and hope to succeed. Although we did have some fairly tragic moments and close calls between the good and the evil, as I've said. If you've made it to book 14 in the series, if you've managed to read through all of the other books in the series, I don't know why you wouldn't enjoy 14 really, because I think the last few books are amazing, the first few books are amazing, book number 6 is awesome, but the middle ones are a little bit slow, I will admit that. So it is a ridiculously long series. It probably could have been cut down massively if we'd taken out some of the repetition that Jordan does, but it works. It is an epic, crazy adventure, and you get to see so much crazy epicness when you read this series. You get to understand these characters and love them, and you get to deal with them and see them as they grow up, because when we first meet them they are just young children, and when we finally leave them they are adults and they have been through a lot of stuff. So I really, really enjoyed this book. I thought it handled everything excellently. I would love to hear your thoughts if you guys have enjoyed it. If you haven't enjoyed it, let me know whether you disagree, agree with anything I've said, or if you just have anything extra that you want to add. And again, if you guys have read all of the books in the series, I will be doing a spoilery discussion of the series, so I will link that down below for you guys to go and check out if you want to, and if you don't mind being spoiled. So that is all. Thank you guys for watching, and I will see you all very soon in another video. Bye! Me and you gonna have a little chat about the